In the spirit of reconciliation, Yellow Ladybugs acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today.
Behaviour and autistic girls in early childhood. How can you tell a young child is regulated and happy? Perhaps they are smiling. Maybe they are dancing and singing, or laughing and spinning around. Maybe they are calm and content, or quietly humming to themselves while they play. Their behaviour is demonstrating to the world around them what they are feeling, and we are reading those signs as joy. We can also tell when a child is struggling. Within an early years setting, young children may cry. They may show signs of distress when a parent tries to leave, or they may have outbursts during playtime, sometimes which can seem to appear out of nowhere. In some children, these behaviours will be loud and external, and their distress easily identifiable. In others, their distress may be more subtle. The child may withdraw or shake, or their body language may change.
Children, whether neurotypical or neurodivergent, communicate their internal feelings through the behaviors that they show. It is our job as caregivers to look beyond those behaviors and instead try to figure out what the behaviors are telling us about the child and their needs. This is particularly important for preschool-aged autistic girls, as they may not have the ability to express why they are struggling.
When considering behaviour as communication, we need to be curious about why an autistic child may behave in a particular way and what message that behaviour may be giving us. We also need to remember that a child may not be consciously expressing a thought, idea, or intention through their behaviour. If we can develop an idea about why a child is behaving in a particular way, especially when the behaviour is indicating distress or anxiety, we can figure out how to best support them.
In this video, we are going to introduce you to two girls, Starla and Iris. Both girls are 4 years old and they are both autistic, although this is yet to be discovered. We are going to show you some typical experiences they go through while in their early learning environment and look deeper into what they may be experiencing and how you can decipher some of their struggles. By understanding the root causes of the behavior, you can then put solutions in place that will help and support them and their needs.
Meet Starla. Starla is bubbly, energetic, and often enters her early learning centre happy. She likes going to her school and upon arrival will check the daily schedule before going to the home corner to play. She says she likes the centre because it has more space and things to climb on than her house does, and she can often be found on the swings, climbing or running around the yard. When she's not climbing or running, she's spinning. Her teachers marvel at her constant energy, often wondering how the little girl doesn't seem to get tired. Like many children, Starla can get easily distracted and often needs to be reminded of what she's meant to be doing, as she often seems to get confused with instructions and requires multiple reminders, which she doesn't like. Sometimes when she gets confused, she will run into the yard. Starla has a strong sense of empathy and a desire for fairness and will often call out her classmates if she sees them doing something wrong. Although she doesn't always seem to fit in with her peers and sometimes plays alone, Starla enjoys playing with the other children. It has been observed that she only seems to be interested in playing certain games or role-playing the same scenarios, but is highly engaged and talkative during these games. She has a tendency to tell her peers how to play and will often tell them if she thinks they are doing it wrong. Sometimes her peers call her bossy because of this. Starla has a particular interest in Bluey, and her games are often replicas of Bluey's storylines. She has a stuffed Bluey that she carries everywhere, which she happily talks about every day to her teachers. Her teachers have noticed that when the other children no longer want to play Bluey, Starla can get upset and seems to struggle with what to do next or with who. If her teachers tell her what to do, she seems to resist and can become even more upset. Her teachers seem to have more success when they offer suggestions or options to her opposed to telling her what to do. Starla has amazing attention to detail and often notices things in the classroom that other children might miss. Starla loves to draw, however, does not like drawing on paper that has marks or folds on them and can get increasingly upset until she is given another. She is also very particular about the food that she eats. She brings the same lunch to the early learning centre every day, and during fruit time, she will only eat apples, carefully inspecting each piece to ensure there are no marks before she will eat them. All of Starla's behaviours have underlying reasons, which we will explore after introducing you to our next little girl, Iris.
Meet Iris. Like many children her age, drop-off time is difficult and she is reluctant to leave her mother. Iris's reluctance is more persistent than many of the other children her age, though, and results in increased anxiety and emotions that take a significant amount of time to settle. It appears that Iris has anxiety, as on top of her emotions at drop-off, she is very quiet and shy and seems to struggle with making connections with other children. She is often seen playing on her own or observed as preferring the company of her educators. Iris is creative and imaginative, loving to draw and paint and make things. Although she is quiet, when she does talk, she does it well. Her language skills are advanced for her age, and she loves to tell her teachers all about horses and the various breeds and colors they come in. Overall, Iris is a great student. She's compliant, bright, and well-behaved. Mat time can be a bit tricky for her, though, as it seems she has trouble sitting still. Her educators call her a wriggle worm as a result of her constant fidgeting, wriggling in desire to be touching something, either running her hands along the carpet, through her hair, or playing with little bits of rolled up paper. Some activities seem to be a bit harder for Iris. During arts and crafts, she has trouble picking up and gripping pencils, and despite her love for creating, often doesn't want to participate in painting because she doesn't want to wear an art smock, complaining about how it feels and getting to the point of near tears until it is removed. The noise of the other children sometimes seems to be too much for Iris as well, as her educators have often observed her sitting with her fingers stuck in her ears or her hands covering them.
Now that we have introduced Starla and Iris, let's break down their underlying needs and what their behaviours could be communicating. Routine and transitions. Routine is incredibly important for autistic girls. In Starla's case, going to the early learning centre is a routine that she thrives on and looks forward to. Transitions can be stressful for Starla, though, so to reduce anxiety, she checks the daily schedule so she knows what to expect throughout the day. Predictability is important. Routine is also important to Iris, but she finds transitions extremely difficult and stressful, and so transitioning from going home to going to the centre isn't easy. It takes her a long time to process this transition, and as a result, she experiences a great deal of anxiety during and after drop-off.
Anxiety. Anxiety can present in many different ways in autistic girls and result in various behaviors. We're going to start by looking at how anxiety affects Iris. The classroom is a stressful place for Iris, another reason drop-off time is difficult. Many children experience separation anxiety, but for Iris, it is more than simply missing her mom. She experiences real anxiety at the thought of getting through the day without her mother's support, something she relies on heavily. Even after her emotions from drop-off time have settled, Iris appears very anxious and is very quiet and shy. The stresses of the classroom result in an anxiety that for Iris causes her to shut down as she tries to process it all and feel safe. Because Iris is anxious and wants to feel safe, she is a people pleaser and extremely compliant as she relies on her teachers to make the environment feel less stressful. Starla, on the other hand, experiences her anxiety much differently. Starla has an autistic profile known as PDA, pathological demand avoidance or persistent drive for autonomy, which makes it extremely difficult for her to comply with the demands placed on her. Starla also has troubles with executive function, which affects her ability to start and complete tasks. Starla finds it hard to follow instructions and is often resistant to doing so, not because she is naughty, but because she struggles with the executive functioning that tasks can require. Instructions that feel like demands result in extreme anxiety that can trigger the fight response. She is not resistant to following instructions, but rather she is avoidant of the stress they cause.
Social anxiety and social behaviour. Anxiety also often affects the social behaviour of autistic girls. Because Starla and Iris experience their anxiety differently, the way they interact with their peers is not the same. Iris finds it hard to interact with other children, and because of this, experiences social anxiety. This anxiety makes it hard for her to form connections with her peers, and to avoid the anxiety that socializing can cause, she chooses to play on her own or spend time with her teachers, who she finds much easier to talk to. Starla enjoys playing with other children and does so often. Despite this, she also has social anxiety, but she experiences it differently, and as a result, it affects her behaviour differently. Starla's dominating play isn't actually her being bossy, but rather it is her way of reducing anxiety. Starla likes to control play so that she knows what to expect, what to say, and what to do. Just like she likes predictability in her day, she likes predictability in her play. For this reason, when Starla's friends no longer want to play her games, she gets very upset and no longer wants to participate. Not because she doesn't want to keep playing, but because she feels too anxious about knowing how to play a game that has new rules.
Sensory processing. Autistic girls can have various sensory profiles and can present very differently. Some are sensory seeking, some are sensory resistant, and some are a little bit of both. Quite a few of Iris's behaviors are actually communicating her sensory sensitivities. Her resistance to wearing an art smock is a good example of how many autistic girls can struggle with wearing certain textures because of how they feel. Iris cannot handle the texture and feel of the art smock and isn't crying to be difficult, but because she is experiencing sensory overwhelm and is in pain. Just as she is overwhelmed by certain textures, noise is difficult for her to process as well. Her actions of covering her ears indicate that she is sensitive to her environment and becoming overwhelmed. Like Iris, Starla also struggles with sensory processing. Her behaviors that might seem like fussiness are a result of her sensitivities to certain textures. Just like she needs predictability with routine and play, she needs it with textures too. Like many other autistic girls, food is a huge struggle for Starla, as different foods have different textures, something she is incredibly sensitive to. Her careful inspection of apples and refusal to eat any with any bruises on them is because she cannot handle the mushy texture of the bruised fruit and needs to have the same consistency each bite. For this reason, her parents pack her the same lunch every day, food that has consistent texture every single time.
Stimming and sensory seeking. Stimming isn't always obvious. Sometimes it can look like rocking or hand flapping, but other times it can be more subtle. In Starla's case, she's very sensory seeking, which is reflected by her need and desire to run, spin, and climb. These activities provide sensory input that help her regulate throughout the day. Because these behaviors are more subtle compared to, say, rocking or flapping, they might not be seen as stimming, and instead she's viewed as highly energetic. Although Iris is less sensory seeking than Starla is and more sensitive to her environment, she still has behaviors that result from her need to have some sensory input, especially in situations where she's being expected to focus or concentrate. Her difficulty to sit still during that time is a reflection of this. Her constant fidgeting and wriggling isn't because she's distracted, but rather because she's trying to keep regulated to focus better, the same reason she runs her hands along the carpet or fiddles with rolled up bits of paper.
Special interests. Autistic children often have very strong special interests, but for many girls, the intensity of their interest isn't picked up as an indicator of autism, as their interests might align with what is expected of girls their age. Starla, like many children, loves the TV show Bluey, but unlike a lot of her peers, her interests in this show and the characters are far deeper. She won't ever part with her stuffed Bluey toy. She won't talk about anything else and revolves all of her pretend play around this interest. Iris, like Starla, also has a special interest, horses. When she pretend plays on her own, it is with horses and other farm animals. And her favorite thing to draw or paint are, of course, horses. Because horses are something that stereotypically is common for girls to be interested in, her intense interest isn't flagged as something that could be an indication of autism.
Why understanding behavior is important. It's important to view and understand behavior as a form of communication in order to better support autistic girls in the early childhood setting. By understanding the causes behind each behavior, support can be tailored specifically towards their struggles. In our next video, we will be exploring these supports and how they can be tailored to address the struggles that autistic girls experience. Thank you for watching.